when you were in elementary school? Was it similar or different?
It was definitely different. First of all, I grew up in Danby, and so I went to school in a little two-room school in Danby Four Corners actually. And there were probably, I'm going to guess there were probably 7 kids in my class at tops, but there were 4 grades in our in the room. So one teacher taught 4 grades. We didn't have any assistants. The teacher just managed, and she taught everything. She taught everything, all the subjects, and even cooked hot lunch, I think, once in a while. So yeah, it was definitely different.
How did you cook hot lunch in the school?
Well, there was a little room, which was, I think, would be sort of like a multi-purpose room, and so when we had hot lunch, which really wasn't every day, but someone would go out in that room and cook it. I think we went there to eat, but I just remember the smells just coming through the classroom. That was just so awesome that we were, we're actually going to have hot lunch. Scalloped potatoes sticks out in my mind. And often, the teacher was involved with it, but her husband I think did the cooking. And they lived on the property, and he probably came in and started the fire. I don't remember what we had for heat. Probably some kind of a wood fire.
Did you have to walk to school?
No, I didn't. We had a bus, and where we lived was not where either of you live, or where Mrs. Alfeld lives or Judy lives. We were way back up on a dirt road, and so we had the bus driver happened to be our neighbor, and he had an old army bus. So the seats just went around the outside, if you can imagine. So he went around the hill and he picked us up, and then he'd go and pick up the other kids, and then on up the hill to Danby Four Corners. Sometimes the roads were always muddy, it seemed, and even the what is now the paved road was a dirt road at that time. And I can remember specifically that in mud season, the bus might get stuck. And so we would have to get off the bus, and then there were 3 or 4 older boys, believe it or not, that would actually pick up the little girls and carry them up the hill so we didn't get all covered in mud, didn't get stuck in the mud or what have you.
Did you go on field trips with your school?
I can vaguely remember maybe going to Shelburne Museum, which for us was a huge, big trip, and maybe the Bennington Monument. So that's kind of similar to what you do. What you do now.
Yeah. Is there a particular memory that stands out to you from your childhood?
Is that regarding school or anything?
Anything, yes.
Well, yeah, I had what I think was absolutely the greatest childhood. I had 2 sisters, and my mom was one of 9 children who grew up on a farm just up the hill from us. So I had lots and lots of cousins, but the neat thing was that we all got together every weekend, and everybody came to Grandma's house, and so I have these wonderful cousins that I still just adore, and we still get together. But we would, every Sunday, my grandma would cook, and she had this humongous big long table, and which seemed really big when you're little. Probably it only seated 12, but it's like it stretched the whole length of the dining room. And she would cook for everybody, and the table would sometimes be filled 3 times. There'd be that many people there, so 30 or 40 people would come to eat at Grandma's house. And the first people, always the men ate first. I bet that's kind of unusual for you. The men always, and so the men always went out and they ate. When they finished, then the women and the kids went out and ate. Sometimes, as I say, it would take 3 times. They'd have to get up and wash the dishes and reset, and then just like at the church supper. And so, my favorite memory certainly is growing up and being a part of such a big, huge, wonderful family, and being able to maintain that relationship as I've gotten older with my cousins. my grandparents had 9 children, 26 grandchildren, and of the 26, 19 were girls. And so there were only 7 boys, and so the girls, I mean, we've lost a couple of cousins, but we all still really stay close now.
Can I ask if Grandma had a specialty on those dinners? So
Oh my
what
gosh,
would you
there
eat?
was, if I could have, probably for sure would be apple pie, because she made the best apple pie, but she just, you know, they had their own meat, and they had their own potatoes and their own vegetables, so it was just a, you know, meat and potatoes kind of a dinner. But she not only cooked that way on Sunday, but during the week, there was always farm hands there, and we would be just down the road. We had other cousins who lived like right around, and so it was not uncommon for, you know, there might be 12 or 14 people there for just a Monday or a Tuesday or what have you. Yeah. Really special.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
No, I don't think I wanted to be the town treasurer. Which is a job that I've had for 34 years. You know, I don't really know. I think maybe doesn't everybody want to be a teacher when they're little, or a nurse or something like that? But I don't really know. I guess maybe, you know, I always wanted to be a mom. So I don't really think that I had anything specific that I wanted to do.
And when did you start thinking about being part of the town government?
Oh my goodness. And I think, I started there in 1981. My children, my boys were small, and the town hall was right across the street from my house, and I thought, oh, this is the ideal job. I can work, and my boys could stay with my mom next door, but they could also come and see me across the street, and I knew where they were. So I've been there since 1981, thinking that I was only going to be there a while, and when my boys were grown up, I would move on to something else. And then my mom got older, and she was not well, so I kind of needed to be home and have a flexible job so that I could kind of help with her care. I'm still there.
How has Pawlet changed since you were growing up?
Oh my, it's changed a lot. I think probably the biggest change has been the influx of young people coming to town. When I first was town treasurer, it seemed like we were the young people in town and on our street, and now we're the older people. There are lots of new people. I think this school has definitely attracted people to our town. So there's been a real change in people. I don't think the population has changed all that much. It's still, it kind of stays the same. The village store was there, post office. You had the village store over here, and the post office.
Was it called Max?
It was
For how
Max.
long has it been Max?
Oh, it's been Max. It was Max store when I was growing up.
Okay.
And at that time, Johnny Mac ran it, and it was a very different store than it has come to be in recent years. He had everything, and also you have to think back then that people didn't travel to go to the supermarket like they do now. So growing up, my family just came to Pawlet to do their grocery shopping at Mac's store. A trip to Granville was, I mean, we went to Granville, but really we did my parents did their shopping mostly at either Sheldon's Market or Mac's Market. And you could buy everything there. I can remember upstairs in the store, which is now apartments, there were, they had toys, and you know, that was just, I can't imagine, I go in there now and I think, well, where was the entrance? I mean, did it go up? It obviously went someplace through the store up to the upstairs, but yeah, so that was different. Sheldon's was always there. Sheldon's, I think, is the longest running family-owned business in the town of Pawlet, and that store has a great history as well as the village store. The post office, since I can remember it, is where it is now. I don't know a lot about West Pawlet, so.
Was the station a
The
restaurant
station,
for that?
the station actually, that's a good question, Mrs. Alfeld, because the station was moved into Pawlet after we moved to Pawlet. My parents moved to Pawlet in the house next door to us in 1968, and I think it was around that time that they moved the railroad station from Wallingford to Pawlet and set that up, and Mr. Shin opened the restaurant there. So that's been there for a number of years, and I don't remember, I think there was probably a house there before the restaurant. I don't know. If there must have been something there that was torn down before the restaurant was moved in there.
And was Dr. Crossman, who these guys would remember from 3rd grade, was Dr. Crossman's office at that time when you guys moved down, was it still on the street?
No, because Dr. Crossman came long after we had been there. My boys were, I would say they were like this age when Dr. Crossman and Chris came. But his first office was down the street from us. We had a doctor on the street. One of the neat things about that I liked when my children were young was that I lived right next door practically to the school. And so my mom cooked hot lunch down there, and so she would stop over, and the boys would walk to school with her every day. And I would watch them. I could look out my window and see them come out to raise the flag, and then to go out on the playground in the afternoon. It was so cool to live right next to the school when my kids were down there. And of course, they were delighted to get to go to West Pawlet when they got older, because the first number one, Mom couldn't see everything that they did, but also they liked the idea of riding the bus.
Has the town government changed or stayed the same since you?
Oh my goodness, it's changed. It is so busy. I used to be able to work, I could get all of my work done in like 2 half days. And now it takes me 3 full days. Even, I used to have I would just use my pencil and paper and handwrite my checks and handwrite my ledgers and what have you. And then we've advanced to computers, which made things supposedly a lot faster, but it still takes me longer. And it's not that the population has changed or that I have more tax bills to take care of, but it just seems like there's just more work. And my office is constantly busy. There's not a time when it's not busy. And I go to the post office and I pick up the mail, and without fail, 90% of it goes into my office. So every check that's been written in the town of Pawlet for the last 34 years has had my name on it. Because we've had a change of select board members over the years, but I'm kind of the constant, so I say I've been there almost as long as the building, and the building has become, is like my second home, because I've been there. The town hall, I've been there for such a long time, but that building holds special memories, because when I was a child growing up in Danby, my parents used to host square dances, and so we would come to Pawlet every Friday night and to the square dance upstairs in the town hall. So yeah,
So it's square dance up there?
Square dancing, yep, square dancing up there.
And your parents would be the hosts of it?
Yeah, they did the dances, and they would usually do them maybe for a benefit of the PTO or some
Live music, recorded music?
Live music, Les Parker and his orchestra. Do you remember Les Parker?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We used to go there too, to Pomona Grange meetings.
To Grange?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Wow.
What was the most exciting thing that happened in Vermont in your life?
In my lifetime, goodness gracious. That's a tough one. There've been a lot of exciting times. I guess you got me stumped on that one. I can't think of.
I wonder if it would
Probably
be
the-
Irene. That's
That-
not a very
that would
happy,
not really
exciting thing.
but you know, I think one of the
Exciting
most
in a good way would be
I think one of the
different.
most joyful things that happened in Pawlet was just the day before Irene, and that was Pawlet's 250th anniversary celebration. And that was huge. It was huge, and it was just, everybody came out to it, and I think that somebody was watching out for us because we had the most perfect day for that celebration. And that evening, we were actually here for a dance out here in the parking lot, and we had heard the warnings, and so all of a sudden, it starts to rain, and so we have to pick up, but then the next day, everything changed, and so I would, certainly in the town, Irene was one of the biggest things that came through town. We had a lot, we were lucky, we didn't have as much destruction as a lot of the towns did, we really lucked out with that, and it wasn't a real cost, not a horrible cost to the towns like it has been to some, to repair the roads and the damage to people's homes and so forth, but it was a big thing to get things put back together. So that, I guess that would really rate highest probably in my memories of things that happened in Vermont.
Any questions from you, Julia? You're allowed to ask a question of anything you might have been curious about. I'm curious, you can keep thinking, Julia, when you moved, so you moved from Danby to Pawlet with your family while you were still living at home.
Mm-hmm.
How old were you when you moved to
I
Pawlet?
was, I had actually graduated high school, because I graduated high school in '67.
Okay, so where
And
did you go to high school then? I'm
I
curious.
went to Granville.
Even though, so Danby kids
So,
went to
yeah,
Granville
because
then?
see, we were on the west side of Danby.
Okay,
And we were really more affiliated with Pawlet than
Okay.
with Danby. We had to go to school at the Four Corners, but it would probably have been just as close for us to have come to Pawlet to school.
gotcha.
And so we went to high school in Granville, and Danby paid tuition wherever the kids wanted to go because we didn't have school.
So I was wondering if you went to Mill River, but no.
No, we went to Granville, and and at that time, it was hard, we weren't involved in a lot of extracurricular activities because of the transportation issue, you had to get somebody to pick you up, and one thing that I know you kids are so much more prepared to go on to junior high than, actually we finished 8th grade, we did eight grades in Danby, but we were really behind in the sciences and the arts and some of the stuff that we just didn't get that in our little school, but and it was it really took some effort to get adjusted to Granville, and which probably happens now too, but I think it's a little easier for kids. They start in at a younger age than we did.
It's easier. Mr. Clark was here a few days ago, and he was talking about how when the Vermont kids went to Granville, that they were the hicks, and
Yeah,
that there was teasing and
yeah.
things like that when he was a kid that he remembered.
Yeah, I do too, and and it's like, Danby, where is that? And but and now as you get older, kids come from everywhere to go to schools, and so everybody just fits in. But one memory that I have, I guess seeing Mrs. Alfeld, of my school days was probably one of my favorite days was the day the book wagon came to school. If anybody ever know about a book wagon?
Oh, my mother had one that would come out to her farm in the Northeast Kingdom.
Oh, it was just the coolest thing, because then you would go out, they would act, it would be like a library on wheels, basically. And we would go out there and get to choose a book, and then we would take that book out, and then when they came back in a week or so, with the book wagon, we'd turn our book and then get another one, but that was just the coolest thing.
What kind of vehicle was it?
It was like a bus,
It was
kind
a
of like a
bus
small
filled
bus.
with books?
Yeah, kind of. I could just picture that being, and it, like pulled up in front of the school, and then we'd all go out by grade and our books, choose our book. We had, I mean, I remember going to Danby Borough to the library. There was actually a library there, and that was very exciting. We did that on occasion, but and then when we graduated, Danby Borough and Danby Four Corners kids would all graduate together, but we didn't really, I don't think we did anything with them other than the graduation. We would go down to the church in Danby, and that's where we all graduated. Yeah.
The book wagon.
The book wagon.
So you had the army bus to get to school.
Yeah.
And then you had the book wagon.
Book wagon, yeah.
And was the army bus, was that just some person, or,
Yeah.
I mean, but it was paid for, I guess, by the town?
by the town
Somebody
probably
must have
paid
paid the guy, right?
Sylvester, yeah, so Sylvester was his name, and he lived
Sylvester.
down the road, from us. His daughter has been my best friend forever. And so he'd come tootling up the road with the army bus, and we'd all get on. And I just think about it. And another thing that he did, he would, if he's like during deer hunting, deer season, he would bring his gun, and if in fact there were a deer that he had been known to actually hunt during this, and he actually shot a deer one day and just pulled it out and just left it over there and went on to.
While you were on the way to
While we were on
school?
the bus, yeah.
We can't
I mean,
miss
there's
an
so many
opportunity.
things there. Yeah. Things were so different, and I don't feel old, I mean, it's such a change from the
It
way
is such a
things
change,
are.
and you're not old. You're our youngest guest who has come,
Thank you,
by far.
thank you.
I think so.
But still, it shows you how times have changed.
Times
The
have
idea
changed.
that your bus driver would, hold on, kids.
Yep. And and I think
Gotta
think
shoot
when
this
you
deer.
think about it, the kids, no, everybody was kind of, I think about growing up there, and the saying, we were poor, but we didn't know we were. Everybody, y'all had the same, and so. But I remember some kids, and it's always stuck with me, that their lunch, some of the boys down the road, there were several in the family, and they were older than us, but they would bring their lunch, and their lunch would be a ketchup sandwich. That's what they had that's what they would bring in their, if you can imagine. But that was what they had to eat, and obviously we didn't get hot lunch at that time, and then the idea that we get off okay, you gotta get off the bus, kids, because we can't get the bus through with all these kids on. And then these boys would just pick up the girls and just bring them along, and so we didn't get stuck in the mud. Or yeah, it was so neat. So I have just wonderful memories.
I love picturing your Sunday dinners. I can only imagine.
And
The crowd,
that,
with
and
three different seatings.
3 different seatings, and the house. I mean, the house had 18 rooms, and so there were. I mean, it was built for a big family, and when it was built, there were a lot of. When my grandmother came to live there, she had a lot of in-laws to live with, and they sort of kind of ran the show, and my grandma she just cooked she started her married life just cooking, and so that's what she did, and she was just the most lovely, wonderful person. She I always say she loved us all the same. Everybody was just as special as. Such a nice story. Yes.
What was your favorite food when you were a kid?
Oh, well, probably would be anything my grandma made, because my mom was a good cook, but cooking wasn't necessarily her thing, so we just ate basic stuff, but everything grandma made seemed like it just tasted so good. And I would say definitely her apple pie, and most anything.
Now I'm really hungry.
Do you, guys, I'm trying to remember your schedule. I just noticed Mrs. Lee in the window. Do you have a special you're supposed to be at this time? Is it time? Do we need to wrap up for your schedule? 9:30? Is it PE?
10:30.
Oh, 10:30? Okay, because I just saw, maybe she was just checking, but,
I don't
do we
know.
have any other questions at this time?
I could probably think of one.
Did you have any pets when you were a kid?
I did. I had a kitty, and we had a kid. We always had cats and dogs, and we actually had. My dad was a logger, but we had a barn, and we had some cows, and we always had workhorses because my dad used them in the woods to bring out the logs and so forth. So, but yeah, I don't think we were ever without a pet.
Did you play sports at all?
Not really, because it was a transportation issue at school.
Right.
We used to play like baseball or kickball or that kind of thing. Growing up though, because there was this big family and all these cousins, we used to get together and play baseball. Mostly I can remember baseball, croquet and that kind of stuff, but a lot of games.
You keep saying that everybody's a really good cook in your family. Are you a good cook?
I'm an okay cook. My kids think I'm a good cook. My granddaughter thinks I'm a good cook. We were actually, I can never talk to anybody without talking about my granddaughter. Her name is Olivia, and she's the only one, and she's almost 7. And I was down visiting her. She lives in New Jersey, and I was visiting with her just a few weeks ago, and she was playing with her Barbies, and her Barbies were there was a wedding going on, and Barbie Rose and John Carlo were getting married. And so we had the Barbies out there, and so she has a big, they live, there's like a lake behind their house, so they just walk out their house and there's like a lake there. And so she has these wonderful sandboxes, and so we were getting ready preparing the dinner for the bride and groom, and I said, well, I'm not sure what I'm going to make, Olivia. And she goes, because I play with her like I'm 7, and it's just so fun. And so I said, Olivia, I'm not sure what I'm going to make. And she said, well, Nanny, she said, I would think that you would make your delicious brownies. She said, no one makes brownies like you do. She said, if that were the case, I wouldn't have been running in and trying to eat every one of them I could find. So I guess I make good brownies.
That's a good compliment. That's a good compliment. We were hearing from Gene, Mr. Higgins, earlier today about the schoolhouse in Rupert that he went to, and how there was now in your schoolhouse in Danby, did you have any playground equipment for recess or anything? They had nothing. They would just scramble on the trees, and the minister would come and yell at them for climbing on the trees.
We had,
did you have a swing?
We had swings. Yeah, we had swings.
So did you had recess, right?
We had recess.
Go out and
we went out, and another thing I remember is that the store was just down the street, and so you could just go if you lived nearby, you could just go home for lunch, which we didn't, but there was a store down on the corner, and so everybody could just walk down to the store and get whatever they wanted. And I was thinking how if you had a quarter, you could buy like a soda and maybe a bag of chips, or if you had 5 cents, you got five pieces of penny candy. It was easier. I think you didn't have all the worries that you have today. Things were much.
I wish it was still like that.
Pardon me?
I said I wish it was still like that. 1 cent candy is great.
That would be okay, wouldn't it, Julia?
Yes, indeed it would. Probably buy way too much candy.
Well, thank you very much,
Oh,
Mrs.
thank you
Coolidge,
for having
coming.
me. Thank you.
It's a treat. Wow, I learned a lot.
Before we leave, Mrs. Alfeld, I brought my camera,
Do you
and
want me
could
to-
I get a picture of my